Welcome to the Animal Agenda. I'm Tom Kiesche, and this week we have two guests from Canine Youth Alliance. That's K9YA. Kelly Osburn, the co-founder and executive director, and Sara Bouchet, CPDT-KA, the program director. Both have impressive bios and credentials, are certified dog trainers, and I think I can summarize that both have a definite interest in the bond between humans and canines. Hello, Sara and Kelly.
Hello.
Hi, Tom.
So before we continue anything, is there anything in that very brief intro that needs clarification or correction?
I think you nailed it.
Perfect.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sara, do you want to tell us what CPDT-KA stands for?
Sure. It's kind of a mouthful. It stands for Certified Professional Dog Trainer Knowledge Assessed. And that is through the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers.
Excellent. So a few disclaimers I have to give. I'm speaking as an individual in my own individual capacity. I'm a volunteer with several organizations, and at least one of those organizations has a working relationship with K9YA. And while I'm not sure I've ever officially volunteered with their organization, I have volunteered alongside them a number of times. So instead of me reading the mission statement, do either one of you want to take a crack at it, or would you rather me read it as printed on your website?
Yeah, so Canine Youth Alliance empowers and enriches the lives of kids from under-resourced communities and abandoned shelter dogs. So we believe that every kid deserves the chance to feel the love of a dog, and every dog deserves the chance to be loved. We're a local nonprofit, a grassroots nonprofit. We began around 2016. What we do is we pair kids from under-resourced communities with abandoned shelter dogs. So the kids train the dogs. It's empowering for the kids. They learn all about humane education, kind of helping our next generation of pet guardians learn how to be responsible and how to prevent things like what's going on right now in our shelters. And we want to give abandoned shelter dogs a chance to enrich their lives and maybe, find a home ultimately. So that's our core. That's what we exist for. We've also kind of branched out, and we have another program model where we train adults at the shelter to train shelter dogs. And with this program model, we can help the dogs right there at the shelter, and we can help up to 3 times the number of dogs than we can in the other model. So the two of them really complement each other.
So you work with kids and shelter dogs, and you work with adults and shelter dogs, 2 different varieties of the same program, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say the priority is regarding Canine Youth Alliance? What is, like, if you can do one thing, what is that?
We really want to prepare the next generation of pet guardians to be responsible, to understand what it means to take care of a pet and to responsibly take care of a pet, but also really inspire them to something that we all, I think, firmly believe is that they're members of our family and that we should treat them as we want to be treated and as we treat our families and friends.
So educational and empathy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
What's the philosophy behind the training? And maybe, Sara, this is up to you.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, I think Sara is probably best suited.
Sure. We only use force-free, modern, science-backed training methods in our programs. That means we focus more on reinforcing desirable behaviors rather than punishing undesirable behaviors. It is a lot easier to do. Your timing does not have to be as precise, which is very, difficult for a lot of people. Also, it really focuses on building the relationship between the human and the dog, which is something that kind of gets overlooked a lot. We really, a lot of times in modern society, just kind of want our dogs to act a different way and as fast as possible, and not taking into account that they are a sentient being with emotions and, should have some autonomy in their life. So this really, not only is more conducive for the dog's learning capacity, but also it really demonstrates for our kids and our adults, I hope, that there are compassionate ways to solve problems without violence, without force, working more together as a team. So that's what we focus on as far as teaching people how to work with their dogs.
So the follow-up on that is, what is the difference between training shelter dogs and training home pets?
There's really not a difference. It's just the experience that the dog has had prior to coming to their home. It's pretty much just the issues that you're dealing with. Shelter dogs are going to have a lot more, they're coming from a really overwhelming, loud, overcrowded environment where their needs are not being met generally on a daily basis. So that's something that a lot of shelter dog adopters have to deal with right up front, and sometimes for the entirety of the dog's life, depending on how severe that was for them. I'm assuming when you say pet dogs, you mean dogs who come from a breeder or a non-shelter environment?
Pets as in home dogs that are already in a home.
Oh, I see. So like as a trainer working with a dog who has been in the home for a number of years already.
Yes.
It really just depends. There's no kind of like formula to what a shelter dog needs and what a pet dog needs. As far as a pet dog, I would say it just depends on how informed the owners have been through the dog's life up to that point and what they have established and implemented at that point as far as boundaries and rules and relationship and that kind of thing.
I always find that training animals is almost more about training the person to train the animal and to be with the animal than just training the animal.
Oh, absolutely. Dogs are easy. Dogs are just going to follow your lead. It's the people that kind of get in their own way most of the time, and in the dog's way.
So, Kelly, maybe you can answer this. There's a high school that you are going to work with. How do you pick the people who are going to be part of the program?
Yeah, so we partner with organizations like the Boys and Girls Club or Strive LA in South LA. And we basically recruit them by putting a gigantic sign up and a sign up sheet. And so it's there a month prior to we get there. And then we do, Sara and the team come in and do a presentation. Now, the kids in our program are anywhere from like 11 to 18. We used to work only with older kids because we wanted them to have the chance to do the program before they aged out of being, in after school care or whatever. But we actually found that the younger kids, like the kids that are, 10, 11, 12, and maybe like, 4 feet tall, are the most engaged kind of youth in the program. It's almost as if they're not so concerned with what their peers think about them yet. So they really just want to do that job and want to bond with that dog. And it's a real fun optic, as you can imagine, to see like a little tiny 4 foot tall young girl, training a giant German Shepherd or a pit bull. We love the optics on that for sure. But generally we do a presentation. The kids submit an application. So for a lot of them, it might be the first time they've actually ever done an interview and gone through that process. And Sara works with the team at the out of school time provider. She works with their staff to determine who should be selected. Generally, it goes on age. So the older kids, we want them to have a chance, to participate in the program. So, yeah.
Well, I would love you all to do all the communities around all the shelters that I volunteer at. I think education is paramount in fixing a lot of the issues. This is the Animal Agenda on KPFK. I'm Tom Kiesche, and we're chatting with two charming individuals from Canine Youth Alliance, Kelly Osburn, the co-founder and executive director, and Sara Bouchet, CPDT-KA, the program director. So, Sara, how do you pick the dogs in the program from the hundreds of dogs in a particular shelter?
Great question. Also, thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly. It's hard to do, apparently.
Well, now I'm going to get it wrong.
Just go back and listen to what you already said.
Gotcha.
So how do we pick the dog? That's a great question. I work pretty closely, and I'm sure you remember from your time there, with the volunteers who actually volunteer with LA Animal Services at the shelter, because instead of just, right now there's, I think, over 300 dogs at the shelter, at North Central Shelter where we pull from. Instead of just kind of arbitrarily walking through and hoping we pick dogs who are suitable for the program, and it taking forever to pick, a couple weeks before we're going to come in and temperament test, I will reach out to the volunteers who know these dogs better. They know our program. They know kind of what we're looking for in our dogs. So I will get suggestions from the volunteers before going in. So we have more of a condensed list to start with. The week before our program starts, we do temperament testing on site at the shelter. So myself, our dog training instructor, our program assistants, and some volunteers will go in every day for a week for 4 hours each day. We'll pull dogs from this list, and we run them through, I believe it's a 15 or 16 point temperament test.
Like 16 with A, B, C, and D. Yeah.
Yeah. So more than that, but there's some sub bullets in there.
Can you give the audience just one idea of one of the temperament tests?
Yeah. So for example, we test for resource guarding. So we will give the dog a bully stick, which if you don't know what that is, it's a something that they can chew on. It's very tasty. And they're generally very high value. It's not something that these dogs, especially at the shelter, are getting pretty much ever. So we give them something high value. We try and trade them for it. And if they won't give it up, we have a fake, creepy plastic hand on the end of a stick that we will try and get it from them with that, in the event that they are a resource guarder and they bite the hand. That way we're not getting bitten ourselves. And that's an important test. First of all, for our program, stuff happens, especially with the kids. People drop stuff. We do give the dogs food stuffed toys for part of the program for them to have a puzzle to work on. And just in the event that we miss something and someone goes to pick it up or take it from the dog, we want to make sure that dog is not going to fight for it. And also for the shelter, they don't really have time to do that kind of testing at the shelter. And it's super important, especially if a dog is going to go, say, to a home with little kids. Like if that dog's going to resource guard, you want to know that beforehand. You want to at least let that family know that is something that they should be looking out for.
So temperament testing is just a way for you to identify which dogs are more bulletproof or bomb-proof, meaning that they're good around kids who may be inappropriate with the dog.
In essence, yes. I don't consider any dog bomb-proof as a rule. There are dogs who are way more tolerant of our behavior and will accept, human beings misbehaving with the dogs. But we can get a better sense of if that dog is going to be overly stressed or anxious in the program, or if they're going to be able to learn some really valuable things that might help transition them into a permanent home.
So, Kelly, you mentioned optics, which is not something I have thought of in the past. Can you think of a story or an animal and a handler from the past that maybe sums that up really brilliantly, or it's just a good story overall?
Yeah, I mean, we have so many, and Sarah's seen it firsthand over and over and over again, I think, in program, where let's just say, for example, we have kids who maybe they were bit by a dog and they're terrified, and they want to be in this program because they want to learn to be around dogs. They want to learn how to be safe. And just to watch them going from kind of scared and pulling their hands back when they're giving a treat to being confident handlers is just one of the most heartwarming things. And, one of the things that's not the purpose of our program, but it was just such a joy for all of us recently, was that we actually had two of the young students who were in our last program, in our spring program, their families were able to go back and adopt the dogs they'd worked with. So here they are working with these dogs for 3 weeks. In general, what happens is, we have a graduation ceremony, and then the dogs can be adopted right there, or they get adopted after the fact. And we tell the kids, now these kids are going home equipped with the skills to help this dog transition into a safe and loving home life. And for me, that really was kind of a real big deal that we kind of quietly slid, through. But it just really is so heartwarming to know that the bonds they created in the program, they get to continue. And also sad, because a lot of the kids in our programs, they come from homes where they can't have dogs, right? So, just like everything, there's a duality here. They may not be able to, like maybe they come from a single family home where their parent works all the time and they just don't have the means to take care of a dog, or they don't have the finances to take care of a dog. So for us, that it was just a real special moment that happened.
Can I ask you about two names, Liam and Robert?
Liam and Robert, yeah. So Liam worked with Bobby, and I believe he worked with Robert, and so he changed his name to Robbie, which is this adorable, really full of personality, chonky husky mix that the shelter had. And you could probably say Liam, they were really well suited to each other. They had the same kind of real big bubbly personalities. And Marley adopted his dog Chatterbox, who was really, I think, ill-named. She's a very quiet, serene, beautiful little pit mix that he renamed Sophia.
So those are the two dogs that got adopted by the handlers.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Outcome-wise, I believe, Kelly, you were into research in college, right?
Yeah. I have my MA in psychology research.
Have you done any number crunching on results from communities that you've been in, or children who are now adults that you have still contact with, or even results of dogs getting out of the shelter and the timelines that dogs stay in the shelter or get out? Do you have any of that kind of stuff?
First of all, I'm going to warn you because I might geek out on you, and I'm going to try and keep it short. But yes, we do. So we have partnered with a school to develop a quantitative measure of impact for the kids. So what we do is we measure 4 core competencies like empowerment and responsibility prior to taking the 3-week program and then after. So we have results on those measures, which I'm super excited about. And our board chair is actually presenting, and I want to say Romania in the next week or so. But yeah, we're seeing an improvement on these measures, which is, really what we're all about, is trying to use the data and improve the program and strengthen the program. For dogs, it's not as easy, but we're getting better at tracking outcomes. We have a 98% record. All of the dogs that have been through our program have found homes or been rescued and stayed out of the shelter. No, 98 point something, I think. But we are also in talks with our partner, LA Animal Services, around how we can do a more quantitative tracking of the outcomes. In other words, the hard part, and again, I'm sorry to get real geeky, the hard part is that we don't have a control group. So we have the dogs that test into the program, and those are the dogs that we have data for. But we don't have a group that maybe tested into the program to track how they did and compare. So that's the tricky bit. But we work really hard to continue to advocate for the dogs. We give all new adopters and fosters a free in-home consultation so that we can use our knowledge of that dog and that dog's behavior to help them adjust in their new home.
That's great.
Yeah.
By the way, for the record and for the listening audience, geeking out about something you're passionate about is incredibly attractive. So people should all geek out. You're listening to the Animal Agenda on KPFK. I'm Tom Kiesche, and we're lucky to have Kelly Osburn and Sara Bouchet from Canine Youth Alliance with us today. Okay, I asked about Kelly's education. Sara, you were a musical theater major in college.
I was.
So if you were to name the name of a musical, all musicals have like a 11 o'clock number or 10 o'clock number, the big number.
Uh-huh.
If there was a musical about Canine Youth Alliance, what would the 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock number be?
Well, you just want me to, I was not prepared for this. Just FYI.
I believe in you, Sara.
I'm not asking you to sing it. I'm just saying, what would that number be?
Let's say I Got Rhythm from Crazy for You.
Okay, cool. Is there a moment when you're there at the shelter or working with the kids or the adults? Is there a moment of like elation? What's the paramount feeling that you have when you're working there?
Yeah, I mean, elation is a good way to put it. I would say inspired, surprised in a good way, collaborative. I don't know.
Is there a breakout moment that happened that you can think of, possibly like between a handler and a dog? Or I think, Kelly, you said there was a moment where you all helped with a dog that needed to be vaccinated. So,
Oh, yeah, actually, that was the Sara, yeah, and the shelter program.
Oh yeah, that was with our adults program. That was not with the kids, but there was that program. We can work sometimes with the more behaviorally challenged dogs because we don't have to take them off site. So that dog, Mario, I believe was his name. He was just really overwhelmed in his kennel. He was a great dog when he was out, super smart, really liked to learn, but he was young and very active and was kind of spinning out in his kennel. So the vet staff was having a hard time just giving him his regular vaccines. So we did a little bit of muzzle acclimation one day in the room, just put it on him and helped them, by having the muzzle there. We were holding the muzzle for him and while the vets gave him his vaccinations, and that was that.
make everyone feel good that they were able to help in that way? Or
yeah, we got to work together with the shelter staff, which was nice. That's not something that happens. We do work with them closely, but they're not in the program hands-on with the dogs with us. So that was a cool moment. Yeah, for sure.
so
And
we're
I can
getting toward.
actually, if I can, I'm sorry, if I can
Yeah.
just chime in. There was, I forget which dog it was, but at the shelter, we train in this big community room, and that dog didn't want to come in the room with all the other dogs at first. And I think Sara and the team, what y'all did was like train the dog on the patio and then with the doors open and gradually move that dog in. So these are the kind of things that we're able to do. Target maybe the shy dogs, right? The dogs that maybe are a little bit preoccupied with other dogs and just need help learning how to engage with their handler, or dogs that maybe aren't super comfortable initially being in a room with other dogs, but then learn that really great things happen there and that they actually end up liking it. So we're making these breakthroughs with these dogs.
So the 11 o'clock number could be titled "I Am Not Afraid," right?
Sure.
Something like that, or I can trust now.
Love it.
Anyway, we're getting towards the end, so I need to kind of wrap up. The public who is listening, what can they possibly do to find out more information about your program or help? Or are there any needs that you have?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So our website is www, the letter K, the number 9, youthalliance.org. We're also on Insta, Facebook, and LinkedIn now, not X. And that's at K9 Youth Alliance, again spelled the letter K, the number 9, Youth Alliance. And we're always looking for volunteers. Volunteering in this upcoming September program will be really rewarding, especially if you want to get better dog handling skills and an understanding around dog behavior and be a part of the solution and help shelter dogs. We also are hiring right now. We're hiring a dog training instructor and we're hiring a lead program assistant, both super rewarding jobs, both part-time positions. So again, go to our website if you're interested in that. And then as a 501c3, we are a public charity. We rely on donations. So, obviously you can go to our website and donate as well, or reach out to me about partnering.
Is there anything that we got to the end and you're like, gosh, I wish we could talk about this bullet point?
Well, I would just like to say that when you had asked Sara about something that felt really kind of like inspirational or elation, and we have these graduation ceremonies, and I see Sara and the team out there. I see the kids being brave, right? And I see all the hard work they've done. For me, that is something that is so rewarding as the person who co-founded this, where we started from just an idea and a group of people who were volunteering to see all these kids, and not just the kids in the program, but legacies. Kids come back and intern. We actually had a graduate come back and volunteer to be a mentor to the kids in the program. So she took the role of the adult volunteers in the program. And I think that really speaks to Sara's leadership and the connection that she has with these kids, and just what the program is all about.
I want to thank you both for being on the show. And I can tell you that there are volunteers at the different shelters I volunteer at that wish that you could come up there and do a program so they could learn from you as well. So thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for all you're going to do in the future.
Thank you, Tom. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.
This is Tom Kiesche, and you've been listening to The Animal Agenda right here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, or streaming online every Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Our guests this week have been Kelly Osburn, the co-founder and executive director, and Sara Bouchet, CPDT-KA, the program director, both from Canine Youth Alliance. You can find out more about them on their website, canineyouthAlliance.org. Special thanks to producer Marlena Bond and Melody King. If you have questions, suggestions, or want to know more, write comments at kpfk.org or go to the Animal Agenda's Facebook page. You can find out more about me through my link tree. Please consider supporting listener-sponsored KPFK by donating online at kpfk.org or by calling 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Stay tuned for the Lawyers Guild with Jim Lafferty, coming up next.